you might be wondering, what in the world is this session, Stepping into Your Power? Are we going to be talking about electrical engineering? What is this? What we're going to talk about today is a framework to help you define success for yourself and kind of the radical notion that you should do what energizes you as it matches up with your motivation. So an example would be, when I was in school, I didn't really like math. So, I did what I was supposed to do, I studied hard, I did all that stuff, but it doesn't make sense for me to then go and be a math major, because every part of math felt like work to me. Going back a little bit more about me, I'm the person that your parents warned you about. I ended up majoring in liberal arts, which in the United States is kind of like the degree that people do. I specifically majored in Spanish, much to the horror of my father, who worked for about 45 years for the US government. In his world, I needed to study business or sciences. Those are real skills. Or, maybe some of you have also heard this, I needed to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. Those are the jobs. And so by me majoring in liberal arts, he was like, ugh, what is this? But luckily, my mother is a hippie turned musician who was like, no, she can do whatever she wants. And what that did is it allowed me to kind of experiment with different kinds of careers. I call this prototyping, and think about like Apple. Apple didn't come out with an iPhone and just like give it away. They made lots and lots of prototypes. So why shouldn't you also prototype your own life? And that is, oh, that's so fun. Okay. So I'm a liberal arts major. This is junk data. This chart means nothing. But this line right here, this is my dad's career. And it says first job, second job, third job, fourth, whatever. Really, it could just be one job. He worked in the government, he changed offices, he got promoted, but he always went to the same place for work his whole life. He loved it, he's very happy. This is me. My first job, I was selling cell phones for Sprint, that no longer exists, now T-Mobile. After Sprint, I went to work at the George Washington University as a receptionist in their international student office, which is where I met my first person from Uzbekistan. Then I was like, oh, I want to move into the nonprofit sector. Then I wanted to go into the development sector. Then I got my dream job at the US Department of State. I ended up realizing that I hated my dream job at the Department of State. So I left, went back into the development space, and then I'm here doing coaching and training for social impact professionals, helping them lead better, mentor better, make better choices so that they can design their own life and step into their power. So that leads us to one of the first takeaways of this session, which is life is a journey. Let go of the end goal and focus on the process. So if I had stayed a math person and done math every day, would I have been happy? No. I would have been like, oh, everything is yuck. Anytime that you finally get an achievement and you're like, oh yes, I am totally set. Like, I just made it into this university, I just got this fellowship, I just got this job, and you're like, my life is set. That is just an opportunity for you to continue to grow. I think about this a lot like astronauts. When astronauts go into space, they're outside of gravity. And so astronauts, they get a little bit taller, they get a little bit wider. And that's kind of what your brain does when it's taken out of the confines of like your everyday, or when you're doing some of these new experiences. And those new experiences help you with the framework for stepping into your power. So as I said, the framework is understanding your passion and what energizes you, acknowledging your motivation, and knowing that that motivation can change throughout your life. Like I said, your life is about prototyping. This is a journey. You're figuring it out. Figure out what you enjoy about that journey. Then you calibrate your energy and your motivation. There's a little Venn diagram you'll see later. And that leads to you stepping into your power. There are also some things I call energy zappers, which we'll talk about in this as well, but we're going to kind of go through energy, motivation, calibration, power. Another important takeaway from this session, everything I just said is about you. So it's about knowing what energizes you, what you're passionate about, what motivates you. And that's because you cannot replicate anyone else's success. Within this room, there are, 30 people with all kinds of different ideas of what success is. You need to define that for yourself, because you will only ever be frustrated if you are chasing someone else's success. Yes. So we're gonna do a quick activity. So first of all, everything that you said you were passionate about, like hold on to that thought as we move into talking about energy. So this is step 1 of our framework. There are 2 kinds of energy, anabolic and catabolic. I could call this positive and negative, but I don't want you to think one's good and one's bad, because they both serve a purpose. So anabolic energy is like building up. So when you were talking about what you're passionate about, like the energy in the room, like everyone, you could hear everyone's chatting, everything's good. Catabolic, and when you're anabolic, it makes it really easy for you to tap into creativity and to think about solutions because you're excited about it. It's, once again, I'm gonna talk about me in math class all the time. Math was hard because I was working really hard for it. My goal was to finish the lesson. My goal wasn't to innovate or think about something new or play with it because it was so for me. Also, I really love a budget. I feel the need to say I've grown and I really love budgets. But so catabolic energy, this is the finger in the ribs stuff. This is the stuff that brings you down. It's destructive. And remember how I said neither one is positive or negative? It's because sometimes this catabolic energy is necessary. This is the stuff that helps you pull an all-nighter or push through and finish that paper in time for something. It's something that you can use sparingly, but if you are living your life with kind of this finger in the ribs, you're gonna get burnt out. Do you know what burnt out means? Yeah, like when you just can't do anything anymore. Yeah, fed up. You're gonna be really frustrated and you're not gonna be stepping into your power. So the awareness of these 2 things is really important, because you can't change anything unless you're aware. And this is really important to think about as you're all kind of stepping into the next phase of life, because many of you have syllabuses, or you have parents like mine who are telling you exactly what you need to do and exactly where you need to go. But if you want to step into your power, you need to check in and be like, am I frustrated or am I energized by this? And then follow that energy. I call it, it's like the hamster wheel. Does that translate? You know how a hamster just kind of runs on that wheel the whole time and it never goes anywhere? Life can start to feel like that, and that's fine. If you are fine with that, great. But it's important to know if you're choosing it or if you are just doing it because it's what you have to do. Make sense?
Yeah.
All right. So this is also important because energy attracts like energy. So when you're excited about something and you're passionate about it, people are drawn to that energy. People are like, wow, that person's creative, that person's inspired, that person has great ideas, and they want to join with you. Think about this, where you have made most of your friends. Have you made them in your version of math class, or have you made them when you were, playing soccer or doing something that you really, really enjoy? I see some nods, okay. There's also a quote by Rumi that is, whatever you are seeking is seeking you. It's kind of like that, thinking about how when you're kind of aligned and energetic, good things are gonna happen. You're gonna see those possibilities, creative solutions, and it's all gonna work. So step 2 of the framework is acknowledging your motivation. And when I work with my clients, I do a very long, values exercise to kind of dig into what are values and how they play into people's lives. But these are kind of 4 buckets, especially thinking about like career paths and like what you want to do that work. Some of you may have some negative feelings about them. It is important to remember that all of these they're fine. Everyone has a value, everyone has a motivation. They are money, so you can think of it like, do you want to make a lot of money in your life? It's pretty straightforward. Influence, do you want a lot of power? Do you want to kind of lead a lot of change, like politics? Do you want to positively affect change in your community? Pleasure, are you looking to maximize your free time in life? And the last one is fame, and looking at, you know, being really well known. Which there was a statistic the other day about how asking young people what they want to be when they grow up, and 80% of them said famous. And to me, I'm like, famous for what? Like that's the important thing. For what? I don't know if any of you want to be like TikTok stars, but think about like using that influence positively. So the second quick exercise we have, and you don't have to write this down, you can just think about it. The 4 motivations, to get to yours, one of these, you're probably like, oh, that's not me. Just mentally cross it off in your mind. For me, it's fame. So I've just instantly crossed off fame. So next, think about what's the next one that you're like, oh, I can live without that. For me, I'll do money this time. And then of the last 2, think about which one speaks more to you. And this should be a little bit hard. It's kind of like, oh, I don't know. Do I want this? Do I want that? In my case, I think starting off my career, I really wanted influence. Like when I was working in international development and nonprofits and all that, I wanted influence. I wanted to lead large teams, and I did. And I talked with thousands and thousands of young leaders and have helped them do amazing things, and I'm really, really proud of that. But what is my motivator now is pleasure. I want more free time. I want to enjoy things more. So when I talked about prototyping your life, that prototype can adjust. I don't know, what is it, iPhone 14 now? iPhone 14 is way different than iPhone 1. And think about all those different versions of your life you can create. And then we get to the exciting stuff, the calibration. So this first part of the Venn diagram is what energizes you. So think about what that passion was. Think about how you felt when you're doing that thing or something that really energizes you. And then what motivates you. And in this dark space right here is what you should do. And you can apply this framework to a lot of different things. You can do it for like, oh, my whole life. Or you can think about like this weekend. Someone is asking me to like go do this thing, but like I don't really feel good about it. What's my motivator here? And work it out. So an example, going back to that math class, imagine that your passion is math and your motivation is money. Somewhere in here, I don't know what it would necessarily be in Uzbekistan, but perhaps a computer engineer or a software engineer. Something like that that is going to make a lot of money. Like you want to work for Google, you want to work for Meta, something like that. Does this make sense? Yeah. Okay, cool. So this is our next activity, which is a little long-term visioning. So imagine that the year is 2033. Think about where you're living, what you're doing, who are your colleagues, what is your favorite part of your day, what is your family situation, and what do you look back on fondly from 2023. So just take a few minutes to think about that, and then you're going to get back in your pairs and pretend like it is 2033. And it's important that when you speak with them, you speak as if it is 2033. So when you say like, where are you living? Don't say, I will be living in Tashkent. Say, I am living in Tashkent. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
All right. So hold on to kind of that vision. Think about it. But we're going to look at some of the things that can kind of zap your energy. Because right now you're probably feeling like pretty good. Like you're taking your company's multinational. You're living where you want to live. Things that can take away that good feeling, kind of like hold you back. These are things that can be the fingers in the ribs. The first is comparing yourself to others. One of the first things I said is that, you have to define your own version of success. And as you're meeting people and as you're kind of networking with each other, understanding that your version of success is different. The world does not need 1,000 Elon Musks. The world needs like you understanding your strengths, your values, and lining those up with your motivation. I'm part of the generation that was told to be well-balanced, well-rounded, to do, a little bit of everything to show that you were this well-rounded individual. When what things are more about now is leaning into kind of the spikes. Like if you imagine like that balanced ball, leaning into like, oh, I'm really good at this thing. Do more of that. Don't try to like suffer with your math. The second energy zapper is this idea of needing to be perfect. Perfect is the enemy of progress. Thinking about this idea of prototyping your life. You are not going to find the perfect job. You are not going to find the perfect person. You are not going to find the perfect anything, but you still need to progress. You still need to try. It's always a prototype. It's always okay to decide it doesn't work and switch up and do something else. Feeling like a victim. I put this in here because I'm going to be speaking to a group of fellows later, and a lot of people, when they don't get exactly what they want, can spend the whole time of an amazing experience feeling sorry for themselves and just focusing on what they didn't get instead of taking the opportunities of what they do have. And everything is an opportunity. Everything good or bad that happens to you is an opportunity either for growth or for learning. And this one, I feel like in this room, this is going to be confusing. Chasing achievement. You're like, what? What do you mean? Chasing achievement? That's not an energy zapper. That's what keeps me moving forward. Achievement is always external. So if you are always chasing someone else's approval or someone else's achievement, that's taking you away from your own definition of success. That's taking you away from your power. This also can be kind of that catabolic energy, which is going to take you to a place of burnout, a place of overwork, a place of doing too much. And then kind of the counter of that is this last one, avoiding difficulties. So obviously, I keep talking about this math class. I still needed to work hard. It was difficult. You still need to do the work. This also, avoiding difficulties, comes in with sometimes it's easier to say yes to people than to say no. And sometimes you need to say no so that you can protect your own energy and keep moving forward towards your goal. There's a productivity rule, because all of us have a million things going on. Productivity rule. Write down all the things you have to do, try to rank them, take time, do it, and then you cross off everything on that list except the top 2. Because if everything's a priority, nothing is a priority. So you need to be able to say no to number 3 through 25 to get things done. Any questions on any of these, or do any of these really resonate for you in your life?
Yeah.
Yeah? Yeah, do you want to explain?
Like feeling like a victim.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes everybody is trying to explain their things. It seems like to me that they are wrong and I'm right, kind of thing.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing. It's the feeling like a victim, I think, is especially difficult with social media. Like when you see everyone else always posting the best thing about their lives, the thought is, ugh, I'm not doing enough. And it's kind of that victim feeling when like, you are. Like that person posting like their amazing trip to Chicago, you know, that was a highlight for them. It doesn't mean anything bad about you. Like, you stay focused on your success, your energy, your motivation, your passion. Anyone else want to bring it? Yes. Yes.
So personally, I felt every and each of them, but the most evidence is avoiding difficulties, I'd say, because this year I participated in a law mid-court competition, national one, and I had a coach, a tough coach, and I had to plead my arguments, and my arguments were difficult somehow because it was related to international law, and like it's a competition where we get a lot of questions, and during those questions I was bombarded with questions, and there were a lot of difficult questions I researched and couldn't find answer, and like there was a lot of pile of questions, and it got really stressful for me, and sometimes I avoided pleading because I had to constantly plead, but sometimes I felt really frustrated by this, and it turned into unpleasant task. So I got stressed from not doing the things that I had control over, so it was a bit unpleasant, and I avoided that difficulty.
Yeah. And all of us do these. Like, thank you for both of you being brave and saying that, you know, these happen, because they happen to everyone. Everyone at times feels like a victim, is comparing themselves to other people, is chasing someone's external validation. It happens to everyone. Like when we're talking about the energetic mindset, the awareness here is the key, so that when you notice that, oh hey, I'm not making this plea because I have all of these feelings about, you know, what the reaction is going to be. Recognizing that, taking a second to kind of just observe yourself, and then deciding whether or not it's worth it for you to do, because there's a lot of power in choosing. There's a lot of power in being like, yes, I am going to do this because I feel confident in my passion and my motivation, and these line up to bring me to this point. The next thing, this is like a homework. You don't have to do this right now. You can just think about it. But it's stepping into your power for the present day. So it's, how are you going to calibrate your energy and your motivation now? Like I said, I'm doing this for a fellowship program later, so remove the word fellowship. How do you want to grow? Think about this during the summer. How do you most want to grow this summer? Set that goal. What do you most want to gain and why? How are you going to avoid or be aware of energy zappers? And then what is one step you're going to take today to move forward? This can just be things you think about, maybe things you journal about. There it is, present. The big takeaway of this session is that you can step into your power by creating a life that integrates who you are, your energy, what you believe, your motivation, and what you do. And this is not rocket science, but it's important just to kind of keep in your mind, because I promise if you do things in life that line up this way, you are going to be more successful, you are going to be happier, and you are going to know that you are choosing the life that you lead. And that is that. This is me. If you ever want to email me, all that stuff. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.